Noah Briggs never thought twice about stepping between a knife and an old man's heart, working double shifts at the factory and waiting tables just to keep his 8-year-old son Tommy in decent clothes. Noah had learned that heroes were for movies. Real life was about showing up, paying bills, and getting by. But when he saw 3 men cornering Walter Dean outside Murphy's gas station, something deeper than logic kicked in. The blade found Noah's ribs before he could think, but he stayed standing long enough to see the attackers flee, and the veteran safe. 24 hours later, still bandaged and bewildered, Noah stared at his phone in disbelief. The President of the United States wanted to meet him. The story had spread across the country overnight, but Noah couldn't shake one thought. What happens when ordinary people get thrust into extraordinary circumstances? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The morning sun casts long shadows across a town that time seems to have forgotten. Millbrook's Main Street stretches 3 blocks between the old grain elevator and Murphy's gas station, lined with storefronts that have seen better decades. Some display for lease signs behind dusty windows, while others soldier on with hand-painted signs and the stubborn determination of small-town business owners. A rusty pickup truck rumbles past, its engine coughing like an old man's laugh. The driver waves at a woman sweeping her shop's entrance, the kind of automatic gesture that defines places where everyone knows everyone, for better or worse. The kitchen is clean but tired, with linoleum that's been scrubbed so many times the pattern has worn thin in places. Noah Briggs, 34, stands at the stove in work clothes that have seen countless washings. His face carries the weight of responsibility beyond his years, but his eyes still hold warmth when he looks at his son. 8-year-old Tommy sits at a small table, methodically eating cereal while reading a library book about space exploration. The boy has his father's thoughtful nature, but carries it with the innocence that Noah works so hard to preserve. Remember, Mrs. Patterson picks you up at 3:30. I'll be at the diner until 6, then straight home, Noah says, stirring. Instant coffee that's more necessity than pleasure. Tommy doesn't look up from his book. Did you know that Jupiter has 79 moons? Noah smiles despite his exhaustion. I did not know that. Think we could visit them someday? We'd need a really good spaceship, and probably more money than we have. Tommy replies with the matter-of-fact tone that breaks Noah's heart a little more each day. Noah's smile falters slightly at his son's assessment of their financial situation. Even at 8, Tommy understands more about their circumstances than Noah wishes he had to. Money's not the only thing that matters, buddy. Sometimes you just need to believe something's possible. Tommy finally looks up from his book. Is that why you still have Mum's pictures on the fridge? The question catches Noah off guard. He glances at the refrigerator, where several photographs of Sarah, Tommy's mother, are held by magnets that have lost half their strength. She's been gone 3 years, but her presence still fills the small apartment like morning light through. Your worn curtains. Noah kneels beside his son's chair. Those pictures remind us that beautiful things can last forever, even when the people we love can't stay with us. Like how stars keep shining even after they die? Tommy asks, his 8-year-old, wisdom cutting straight to the heart of things. Exactly like that, Tommy. Exactly like that. The drive to Millbrook Manufacturing takes Noah through neighborhoods where American flags hang from front porches, and lawn mowers sit in driveways like faithful dogs waiting for weekend attention. The factory whistle blows and workers stream through the gates like a river of hard hats and lunch pails. Noah nods to familiar faces, exchanges brief morning greetings, but keeps moving. He's learned that stopping to chat can make him late, and being late can cost him the job he can't afford to lose. The factory floor is a symphony of organized chaos. Machines stamp and cut and weld, supervised by workers who move with the practiced efficiency of people who've done the same tasks for years. Noah operates a press that shapes metal brackets. his movements automatic after 18 months on the job. The work is honest, but demanding, requiring the kind of attention that leaves little room for daydreaming. During his lunch break, Noah sits alone at a picnic table behind the building, methodically eating a sandwich while reviewing a small notebook. The pages are filled with numbers, expenses, due dates, calculations that never quite add up to enough. Rent, utilities, groceries, Tommy's school supplies, the truck payment that's 2 months behind. The mathematics of survival in a place where good jobs are scarce and unexpected expenses can derail a family's stability. Frank Morrison approaches with his own lunch, a man in his 50s who's earned respect through decades of showing up, working hard, and treating people fairly. He's been at the factory for 23 years and serves as an unofficial mentor to newer workers. "Mind if I sit?" Frank asks, though he's already settling onto the bench across from Noah. Noah closes the notebook. "Of course. How's Tommy doing? Haven't seen him at the company picnic planning meetings." "He's doing well, growing fast. Seems like I buy him new shoes every few months," Frank chuckles. "Kids have a way of doing that. Mine are all grown now, but I remember those days. Everything goes to keeping them fed and clothed, and there's never enough left over for the extras." Noah appreciates Frank's understanding. Too many people offer advice about managing money when they've never had to choose between paying the electric bill or buying groceries. "Sarah used to handle the finances," Noah admits. "She had a way of making everything stretch further than it should have. I'm still learning." Frank's expression softens at the mention of Noah's late wife. The whole town knew Sarah Briggs. Her laugh that could fill a room, her way of remembering everyone's birthday, her battle with cancer that lasted 2 years longer than the doctors predicted. She was special, that one. But you're doing right. By Tommy, that boy's got good manners and a kind heart. That doesn't happen by accident. The afternoon shift passes in the steady rhythm of industrial production. Noah's hands know the work so well he can let his mind wander to Tommy's upcoming parent-teacher conference. The truck's strange noise that probably means expensive repairs, and the persistent worry that keeps him awake at night. What happens if he gets sick or injured and can't work? At 5:30, Noah punches out and drives across town to Diane's diner, where he works the evening shift 4 nights a week. The transition from factory worker to waiter requires a mental adjustment, switching from the solitary focus of machine operation to the social demands of customer service. Diane Kowalski has owned the diner for 15 years, serving comfort food to truck drivers, factory workers, and the occasional traveler who stumbles upon Millbrook while avoiding interstate traffic. She's a woman who measures success in steady customers and employees who show up when they say they will. "Evening, Noah. How was the factory today?" Diane asks as he ties on his apron. "Steady. Frank says they might be hiring another shift supervisor soon. You thinking about applying?" Noah considers the question while filling salt shakers. A supervisor position would mean better pay, regular hours, and the respect that comes with leadership. It would also mean more responsibility and the political dynamics that come with managing people. Maybe. Tommy's getting older and the extra money would help with college planning. College, huh? That boy's got the brains for it. Reminds me of my nephew, always reading, always asking questions that make you think. The dinner rush brings a familiar cast of characters. Bill and Martha Henderson celebrating their anniversary with meatloaf and apple pie, Jake Morrison picking up takeout for his sick wife, the Sullivan family treating their visiting grandmother to fried chicken and mashed potatoes. Noah serves each table with genuine interest in their lives, remembering their preferences and asking about their families. This is the part of the job he actually enjoys, the brief connections with people who've become part of his extended community. In a place where everyone knows everyone's business, being trusted with their casual confidences feels like belonging to something larger than his own struggles. At 9:15, Noah helps Diane close the diner, wiping down tables and restocking supplies for tomorrow's breakfast crowd. The work is methodical and satisfying, transforming chaos back into order. "You heading straight home?" Diane asks as they lock up. "Need to stop for gas first. Tommy's got a field trip tomorrow and I want to make sure the truck's ready." "That. Boy's lucky to have you, Noah. Not every kid gets a father who puts their needs first." Driving toward Murphy's gas station, Noah reflects on Diane's words. He doesn't feel particularly heroic or selfless, just tired and determined to keep moving forward. The choices he makes feel inevitable rather than noble. Work because Tommy needs stability. Save every dollar because security is fragile. Be present because time is precious. The gas station sits at the intersection of Route 23 and Miller Road, serving as an unofficial community center where people stop for fuel, snacks, and the kind of casual conversation that keeps small towns connected. Murphy himself died 5 years ago, but his son Danny kept the name and the tradition of staying open later than the chain stations on the highway. Noah pulls up to pump 3, the one with the handle that sticks but usually works if you're patient. The October evening carries the crisp promise of winter, and he zips his jacket against the chill. Tomorrow, he'll wake up and repeat this routine: factory, dinner, home, sleep, repeat. It's not glamorous, but it's honest work that provides for his son. The routine is about to be shattered in ways Noah cannot imagine, by choices that will reveal the kind of man he truly is when everything familiar falls away. The gas pump clicks off at $23.47, enough to get Tommy to his field trip and back with a few dollars to spare. Noah replaces the nozzle and heads inside to pay Danny, who's restocking cigarettes behind the counter while watching a baseball game on a small television. "Evening, Noah. How's the boy?" "Good. Excited about visiting the Science Museum tomorrow. Been talking about it for weeks." "That's great. Sarah would have loved seeing him so interested in learning." Noah nods, pulling crumpled bills from his wallet. The casual mention of his wife still catches him sometimes, 3 years later. Not with the sharp pain it once carried, but with a gentle ache that reminds him how much she's missed. $23.47 on pump 3, he says, counting out exact change. Through the plate glass window, Noah notices an old man fumbling with his wallet near the far pump. 3 younger men approach him. Not customers, Noah realizes, because they didn't arrive in a vehicle. They emerged from the shadows beyond the station's fluorescent lighting like predators drawn to vulnerability. "Danny, you might want to call." The conversation outside escalates quickly. The old man backs against his car, a faded blue sedan. That's probably older than Tommy. One of the men grabs his arm while another rifles through his wallet. The third keeps watch, his posture suggesting this isn't their first time. Noah doesn't remember making the decision to intervene. One moment he's reaching for his receipt, the next he's pushing through the glass door into the cool October evening. His body moves with certainty, while his mind catches up, cataloging details. The old man's military bearing despite his fear, the attacker's casual confidence, the bronze star pin on the victim's jacket lapel. "Hey!" Noah calls out, his voice carrying the authority of someone who spent years managing workplace conflicts. "Leave him alone!" The 3 men turn toward Noah with the lazy attention of predators, deciding whether new prey is worth the effort. The leader, a lanky man with tattoos covering his forearms, grins with the kind of smile that never reaches the eyes. "Walk away, hero. This doesn't concern you." But Noah can't walk away. Looking at the old man's face, the dignity mixed with fear, the way he clutches his car keys like a lifeline, Noah sees every veteran who's ever been forgotten by the country they served. He sees Tommy's future grandfather, the neighbor who shovels snow without being asked, the stranger who deserves basic human decency. "It concerns me now," Noah says, stepping closer. "Danny's already calling the police." Whether Danny actually called the police, Noah doesn't know, but the bluff might buy time or change the calculation. The second attacker, shorter but stockier than the leader, looks toward the station where Danny's silhouette is visible through the window. "We just want his money, not any trouble," the leader says, his tone reasonable in the way that dangerous men use to justify violence. Old man shouldn't be carrying cash if he can't protect it. He shouldn't have to protect it, Noah replies, closing the distance between them. You want money? Get a job. The old man speaks for the first time, his voice carrying the measured cadence of someone accustomed to command. Son, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but these fellas have made their intentions clear. Maybe you should— No, sir, Noah interrupts, never taking his eyes off the attackers. My father taught me that when you see someone in trouble, you help. No exceptions. The leader's grin fades. Your father teach you about knives too. The blade appears so quickly Noah almost misses it. A folding knife that catches the gas station's lights like a malevolent star. The sight of it changes everything. This isn't just robbery anymore. It's the kind of violence that leaves people permanently changed or permanently gone. Noah's mind races through options: retreat to the station and hope they take the money and leave, try to de-escalate with words, or close the distance before the knife becomes an advantage. Each choice carries risks he can't fully calculate in the seconds available. The old man makes the decision for him. Take it, he says, extending his wallet toward the attackers. I'm 82 years old. The money isn't worth anyone getting hurt. But the leader doesn't reach for the wallet. Instead, he smiles again, and Noah realizes this was never just about money. Some people hurt others because they can, because cruelty gives them something they can't find any other way. Too late for. That old man should have thought about consequences before your boy Wonder showed up. The knife moves toward the veteran's chest in a quick, efficient motion designed to disable rather than immediately kill. Noah doesn't think about Tommy waiting at home or the bills that won't pay themselves if he's injured. He doesn't consider the rational arguments for self-preservation or the statistics about civilian intervention in violent crimes. He simply steps between the blade and an old man's heart. The knife finds the soft spot between Noah's ribs, sliding through fabric and skin with surprising ease. Pain flares bright and immediate, but Noah's body doesn't stop moving. His momentum carries him into the attacker, disrupting the planned strike and turning organized violence into chaotic struggle. The leader stumbles backward, pulling the knife free and raising it for another strike. But Noah doesn't fall. He grabs the man's wrist, using factory-trained grip strength to control the weapon, while pain radiates through his torso like electricity. Run! Noah shouts to the old man while wrestling for control of the knife. Get help! Instead of fleeing, the veteran moves toward his car with military efficiency, reaching for something in the front seat. His voice carries new authority when he speaks again. Gentlemen, I served 2 tours in Vietnam and 30 years with the state police after that. This situation ends now. The retired officer's service weapon appears in his hands with practiced ease, held steady despite his age. The 3 attackers suddenly face an armed veteran and a man who refuses to go down despite bleeding from a knife wound. Jesus Christ! The stocky attacker mutters, already backing away. You didn't say anything about a cop. Retired, the old man corrects, his voice calm and professional. But I still remember how to use this, and I'm still sworn to protect citizens under attack. The leader looks between Noah, who's still standing and blocking his escape route, and the veteran whose weapon never wavers. Whatever calculation brought them to this gas station has changed dramatically. This isn't over, he says, but he's already moving toward the darkness beyond the parking lot. Actually, it is, the veteran replies. I've got your faces memorized and 30 years of experience writing reports. You run now, or you get arrested here. Your choice. They run. Noah sags against the gas pump, finally allowing himself to feel the full impact of the knife wound. Blood seeps through his shirt, warm and sticky, but he's conscious and breathing. More importantly, the old man is safe. Son, you need an ambulance. The veteran says, holstering his weapon and moving to Noah's side. That's a serious injury. I'm okay, Noah insists, though his voice sounds weak even to himself. Just need to get home to my boy. You're not driving anywhere. What's your name? Noah. Briggs, Well, Noah Briggs, I'm Walter Dean, and I owe you my life. Maybe more than my life. Those boys weren't planning to just take my money and leave. Danny emerges from the gas station, cell phone in hand, and face pale with concern. Ambulance is on the way, police too. Holy cow, Noah, are you all right? Better than all right, Walter Dean says, looking at Noah with something that might be wonder. This man just stepped between a knife and a stranger. Don't see that kind of courage very often. Noah wants to protest that it wasn't courage, just instinct, that he didn't think about consequences or calculate risks, that he simply saw someone who needed help and helped them, but the words won't come. And the parking lot spins slightly around him as adrenaline fades and shock begins to set in. Sirens approach from the direction of town, growing louder against the October night. Red and blue lights paint the gas station in alternating colors, transforming the familiar into something strange and urgent. Tommy, Noah mumbles, suddenly remembering his son waiting at home. I need to call Tommy. We'll take care of that, Walter promises. Right now, you just focus on staying conscious until the paramedics get here. As the ambulance pulls into the parking lot, Noah's last clear thought before the pain medication takes hold is simple. He'd do it again. Whatever comes next. Medical. Bills, police reports, explaining to Tommy why Daddy's hurt. He'd make the same choice every time. Some things matter more than safety. Some people are worth protecting, even when you don't know their names. The hospital room smells like disinfectant and flowers. An odd combination that somehow manages to be both sterile and hopeful. Noah wakes to find Tommy asleep in the chair beside his bed, small fingers wrapped around a drawing of two stick. Figures under a rainbow. Mrs. Patterson sits nearby, knitting something blue and keeping watch over both of them. How long was I out? Noah asks, his voice rough from the breathing tube they'd removed earlier. About 6 hours, Mrs. Patterson replies, setting down her needles. Surgery went well. Doctor says you'll be sore for a while, but everything important stayed where it belongs. Tommy stirs at the sound of his father's voice, blinking awake, with the confused expression of someone pulled from deep sleep. When he sees Noah conscious and alert, relief floods his small face. Dad, are you okay? Mrs. Patterson said you helped someone and got hurt. Noah reaches for his son's hand, feeling the familiar weight of responsibility settle back over him. I'm going to be fine, buddy. Just need to rest for a day or two. The man on TV said, You're a hero. What man on TV? Mrs. Patterson exchanges a look with Tommy that suggests there's more to discuss than Noah's immediate medical condition. The story's been on the news, Noah. Local at first, but it's spreading. People are calling you a hero for stepping in like... In that, Noah shifts uncomfortably in the hospital bed, wincing as the movement pulls at his stitches. Hero isn't a word that fits how he feels. Tired, worried about medical bills, concerned about missing work. Heroes belong in movies and history books, not in small-town gas stations. I just did what anyone would do. No, says a familiar voice from the doorway. Walter Dean enters, wearing a clean shirt and pressed slacks, looking more like a retired police officer than the vulnerable old man from the previous night. Most people would have stayed in that store and hoped for the best. You're something different, son. Walter carries a small bundle wrapped in tissue paper, which he sets on Noah's bedside table. Thought you might want to see this. Inside the wrapping is a Bronze Star medal, tarnished with age, but still beautiful. The ribbon is faded but intact, bearing the distinctive red, white, and blue stripes that mark it as earned in combat. This is what those boys were after, Walter explains. Not just my wallet, they wanted my medals. Been happening to veterans around the state. They sell them to collectors who don't ask questions about provenance. Tommy examines the medal with the reverence 8-year-olds reserve for genuinely important things. What's it for? Bravery under fire, Walter says simply. Your father earned one too last night. They don't give medals for what civilians do, but they should. A knock on the door interrupts the moment. A young woman in a sharp blue suit enters, carrying a tablet and wearing the kind of confident smile that suggests she's comfortable in any room she enters. "Mr. Briggs, I'm Jennifer Collins from Channel 7 News. I was hoping to speak with you about what happened last night." Noah's instinct is to refuse. He doesn't need attention or recognition. He needs to heal quickly, get back to work, and return to the routine that keeps his life stable. But Mrs. Patterson gives him a subtle nod, and he realizes this might be bigger than his personal comfort, I suppose. But I don't have much to say. Jennifer sets up a small camera on a tripod while asking basic questions about Noah's background. Single father, 2 jobs, long-time Millbrook resident. Her professionalism puts him at ease, and when the camera starts rolling, the conversation feels natural rather than performative. "Tell me what went through your mind when you saw Mr. Dean being attacked." Noah considers the question carefully. "Honestly, I didn't think much at all. I saw someone who needed help, and helping seemed like the right thing to do. Even knowing you could be seriously injured. My son asks me all the time why people do bad things to each other. I've always told him that good people have to step up when they see wrong happening. How could I tell him that and then walk away when it mattered?" Jennifer's questions continue for 10 minutes, focusing on Noah's motivations rather than the dramatic details of the confrontation. When she's finished, she shakes his hand with obvious respect. "This will air tonight and probably get picked up by other stations. You've done something remarkable, Mr. Briggs." After she leaves, Walter settles into the chair Jennifer vacated. "Mind if I stay for a while? Been thinking about what you said last night, about helping when you see someone in trouble." "Of course. Tommy, why don't you show Mr. Dean your drawing?" Tommy proudly displays his artwork, 2 stick figures under a rainbow, one slightly taller than the other. "This is me and Dad after he gets better. The rainbow means everything's going to be okay." Walter studies the drawing with the seriousness it deserves. "That's excellent work, young man. Mind if I ask you something?" "Sure. Are you proud of your father?" Tommy nods vigorously. "He works really hard to take care of me, and now he saved someone too." "He sure did. You know, I have a grandson about your age, but I haven't seen him in a long time. We had some disagreements, his mother and I. Watching your dad last night reminded me that life's too short for staying angry." The conversation is interrupted by Frank Morrison's arrival, still in his work clothes and carrying a card signed by everyone at the factory. Behind him come Danny from the gas station, Diane from the diner, and what appears to be half of Millbrook's population. "Heard about what happened," Frank says. "Wanted you to know the whole town's talking about it. Proud of you, Noah." The next few hours pass in a blur of visitors, cards, and flowers. Each person shares the same sentiment: pride in knowing someone who did the right thing when it mattered. Noah appreciates their support, but feels increasingly uncomfortable with the attention. By evening, the local news story has aired, and social media has discovered Noah Briggs. Mrs. Patterson shows him her phone, where the story is being shared. Hundreds of times on Facebook, comments pour in from strangers praising his courage and expressing hope that more people would follow his example. "This is getting out of hand," Noah says, scrolling through messages from people he's never met. "I don't need all this attention." "Maybe it's not about what you need," Walter suggests. "Maybe people need to see that good still exists in the world. Maybe they need a reminder that ordinary folks can do extraordinary things." Tommy falls asleep again in his chair, exhausted by the day's excitement and emotion. Noah watches his son's peaceful face and thinks about the world he's trying to raise him in, a place where standing up for others sometimes comes with unexpected consequences. The doctor releases Noah the next morning with strict instructions about wound care and physical limitations. The drive home in Mrs. Patterson's car takes them past Murphy's gas station, where yellow crime scene tape still flutters in the breeze, and a small memorial of flowers marks the spot where courage briefly intersected with violence. "Dad," Tommy says quietly as they pass the station, "are you famous now?" Noah considers the question, His phone has been ringing constantly with interview requests from news outlets he's never heard of. The story seems to be spreading beyond Ohio, beyond anything he could have imagined. I don't know, buddy. I hope not. Famous people have complicated lives, and ours is complicated enough already. But as they pull into their apartment complex, Noah sees cars with out-of-state plates and people with cameras waiting by his front door. Whatever normal looked like before, it's about to change in ways he can't control or predict. Walter Dean's car is parked nearby, and the old veteran emerges as they approach. "Thought you might need some help navigating this," he says, gesturing toward the reporters. "Been dealing with media attention most of my adult life. Sometimes the best strategy is to give them what they want, so they'll leave you alone." Noah looks at the crowd gathered around his home, then at Tommy's worried expression, then at the simple drawing still clutched in his son's small hand. "Everything's going to be okay," the rainbow promises. But Noah's not sure he believes in rainbows anymore. The phone call comes at 7:30 in the morning, 3 days after Noah's release from the hospital. He's attempting to make breakfast one-handed while Tommy gets ready for school, trying to maintain some semblance of normal routine, despite the constant stream of interview requests and visitors. Is this Noah Briggs? The voice is professional, crisp, with the kind of authority that suggests important business. Yes, but if this is another reporter, I'm not Mr. Briggs. This is Elena Vasquez calling from the White House Office of Public Engagement. I'm not a reporter. Noah sets down the spatula and sits heavily in the nearest chair. The White House doesn't call people like him. This has to be some kind of elaborate prank, probably organized by the guys at the factory who think they're funny. Very funny. Did Frank put you up to this? I understand your skepticism, Mr. Briggs. The president has been following your story, and he'd like to invite you to Washington to be honored for your courage and moral leadership. The woman's tone doesn't waver, and details she provides, his full name, address, the specifics of the incident, suggest this isn't a prank. Tommy appears in the doorway, backpack ready for school, and stops when he sees his father's expression. "This is really the White House?" "Yes, sir. The president was particularly moved by the interview you gave, especially your comment about teaching your son to help others. He'd like to present you with the Presidential Medal of Courage for civilians." Noah's mind struggles to process the information. Presidents give medals to generals and astronauts, not factory workers from small towns in Ohio. This feels like a mistake that will be corrected once someone realizes they've called the wrong number. I think you have me confused with someone else. You're a single father who risked his life to protect a veteran he'd never met. That's exactly who the president wants to honor. Elena Vasquez explains the process with patient professionalism. If Noah accepts, he'll be flown to Washington in 2 weeks for a ceremony in the Rose Garden. The invitation extends to Tommy and one guest, Mrs. Patterson, Elena suggests, given her role in caring for them both. "Can I think about it?" Noah asks, though he's not sure what there is to consider. "How do you say no to the President of the United States?" "Of course." "But Mr. Briggs, the country needs reminders that good people still exist. Your story gives people hope." After Elena hangs up, Noah stares at the phone for a long moment. Tommy approaches with the careful concern of a child who's learned to read his father's moods. "Dad, was that really the White House?" "I think so, buddy. They want us to visit Washington, like where the president lives." "Exactly like that." Tommy's eyes widen with the kind of wonder that 8-year-olds reserve for genuinely magical possibilities. "Are we going to meet him?" Before Noah can answer, Walter Dean knocks on the front door. The veteran has become a daily visitor, helping Noah navigate media attention while sharing stories about his own military service and police career. His presence provides stability in what's become an increasingly surreal situation. "Morning, Noah. Tommy, thought you might want to see this." Walter carries a copy of USA Today with Noah's story on the front page. The headline reads, "Small Town Hero Defends Veteran, Inspires Nation." Below it is the photo Jennifer Collins took, At the hospital, Noah looking tired but determined, with Tommy's rainbow drawing visible on the bedside table. "This is getting crazy," Noah says, studying his own face on a national newspaper. "I don't understand why people care so much." "Because heroes are rare," Walter explains, settling into the chair that's become his usual spot. "Most people spend their whole lives waiting for someone else to step up. When they see someone actually do it, it reminds them what's possible." Tommy studies the newspaper with fascination. "Dad, you're famous." "I don't want to be famous. I want to go back to work and take care of you and live our normal life." Walter folds the newspaper carefully. "Normal's gone, son. Question now is what you do with what comes next." "The White House call you yet?" Noah stares at him. "How did you know?" "Because I called them, told them about what you did and what kind of man you are. Sometimes good deeds need good publicity to make a difference." The revelation that Walter orchestrated the presidential attention catches Noah off guard. He's not sure whether to feel grateful or manipulated, honored or overwhelmed. "You contacted the president?" "I contacted people who know people." 30. Years in law enforcement teaches you how to work the system when something matters. Your story matters, Noah. The next week passes in a whirlwind of preparations Noah never expected to make. Mrs. Patterson helps him shop for appropriate clothes. His first suit since Sarah's funeral. Tommy practices shaking hands and saying, "Pleased to meet you," with the solemnity of someone preparing for the most important moment of his young life. The factory gives Noah paid leave, understanding that this kind of publicity reflects well on the entire community. Diane insists on covering his shifts at the diner, refusing to accept payment and declaring herself proud to know a genuine American hero. Media attention continues to grow. The story appears on CNN, Fox News, and network evening programs. Reporters ask about Noah's background, his late wife, his struggles as a single father. Each interview reinforces the narrative that ordinary people can do extraordinary things when circumstances demand courage. Noah finds the attention exhausting and unnatural, but he begins to understand its purpose. People write letters, sharing their own stories of helping strangers or being helped by them. Children send drawings similar to Tommy's, depicting stick figures being kind to each other. Teachers report students discussing what it means to be brave. "Maybe Walter's right," Noah tells Mrs. Patterson, as they practice walking through the protocol Elena Vasquez explained. "Maybe this is about more than what happened to me." "I think it's about exactly what happened to you," she replies. "You showed people what decent looks like. In times like these, that's worth celebrating." The night before their flight to Washington, Noah lies awake, thinking about the path that led from a gas station confrontation to a presidential invitation. None of it feels real, but Tommy's excitement is genuine enough to pull Noah forward into whatever comes next. Walter stops by early the next morning to drive them to the airport. His own excitement is barely contained, though he tries to maintain the dignified composure of someone who's met important people before. "One thing to remember," he tells Noah as they load luggage into his car. "You earned this, not because you got stabbed, but because you chose to help when helping was hard. That choice matters more than you know." At the airport, Noah experiences his first taste of what fame actually means. Strangers recognize him from news coverage and approach with requests for photos and expressions of gratitude. Flight attendants upgrade their seats without being asked. The pilot announces over the intercom that they're honored to have a real American hero aboard. Tommy handles the attention with 8-year-old Grace, shaking hands and answering questions about whether he's proud of his father. Watching his son navigate conversations with adults who treat him like someone important, Noah realizes this experience is changing both of them in ways he can't yet understand. As the plane lifts off from Cleveland, carrying them toward Washington and whatever awaits there, Noah looks down at Ohio growing smaller below them. Somewhere down there is the gas station where everything changed, the factory where he's expected back next week, the apartment where he's built a life for Tommy. but something tells him that life, the careful routine of survival and stability, won't be waiting when they return. Some changes can't be undone, and some moments alter the trajectory of ordinary lives in extraordinary ways. Elena Vasquez promised that the country needs reminders that good people exist. Flying toward the nation's capital to meet the President of the United States, Noah hopes she's right. Washington, D.C. hits Noah like a physical force. The scale of everything, the purposeful movement of people who belong in places of power, the weight of history pressing down from marble monuments and government buildings. Standing on the sidewalk, outside Reagan National Airport, luggage at his feet, and Tommy's hand in his, Noah feels more out of place than he's ever felt in his life. Mr. Briggs, a young woman, approaches with the confidence of someone accustomed to meeting important people. She's Latina, probably in her early 30s, with sharp intelligence behind wire-rimmed glasses and the kind of professional bearing that suggests she's comfortable navigating complex situations. "I'm Elena Vasquez. We spoke on the phone." "Ms. Vasquez, thank you for arranging all this." Noah shakes her hand, noting the firm grip and direct eye contact that mark her as someone who gets things done. "Please call me Elena, and you must be Tommy." She kneels to Tommy's eye level with practiced ease. "I've heard wonderful things about you. Are you excited to see the White House?" Tommy nods seriously. "My teacher says it's where the most important decisions get made." "Your teacher's absolutely right. Would you like to help make some important decisions while you're here?" Elena leads them to a black sedan with government plates, explaining the schedule as they drive through streets that feel more like movie sets than real places where real people work. Tomorrow's ceremony, tonight's dinner with other honorees, meetings with various officials who want to express their appreciation. This is a lot, Noah admits, watching the Capitol dome appear through the windshield. "I'm not sure I'm the right person for all this attention." "Mr. Briggs, Noah, you stepped between a knife and an innocent man without thinking about consequences. That's exactly the kind of person we need people to see and remember." The hotel is nicer than anywhere Noah has ever stayed, with a lobby that feels more like a museum and staff who treat every guest like visiting royalty. Their suite overlooks the Potomac River, and Tommy immediately presses his face against the floor-to-ceiling windows to count the boats below. "This is amazing, Dad. Look how big everything is." Elena handles check-in with efficient professionalism, while Noah tries to process the reality of being treated like someone important. The bellhop refuses his attempt to tip, explaining that everything has been arranged by the White House. Even the minibar is complimentary, stocked with juice boxes and snacks that suggest someone anticipated an 8-year-old guest. "I'll pick you up at 6 for dinner," Elena says, handing Noah a folder containing the week's itinerary. It's informal, just a chance to meet the other honorees before tomorrow's ceremony. Alone in the suite, Noah and Tommy explore rooms that are larger than their entire apartment back home. The bathroom has a television built into the mirror. The beds are so large that Tommy could sleep sideways without his feet hanging over the edge. Everything feels designed for people whose lives operate on a completely different scale. "Dad, are we rich now?" Tommy asks, bouncing on the couch that faces the river view. "No, buddy, this is just temporary. We're guests here." "But why would they spend so much money on us if we're not important?" The question cuts to the heart of Noah's discomfort. He's never thought of himself as important, just as someone trying to do his best in circumstances he didn't choose. This treatment suggests a level of significance that doesn't match his self-perception. At 6 o'clock, Elena returns wearing a different outfit that somehow manages to be both professional and elegant. She leads them to a private dining room where 4 other people wait, the other recipients of tomorrow's Presidential Medal of Courage. Dr. Patricia Hendricks saved 3 children from a burning apartment building in Detroit. Marcus Williams, a high school teacher, disarmed a student who brought a gun to school. Sarah Chen, a nurse, stayed with patients during a hospital shooting despite orders to evacuate. Captain James Rodriguez, retired military, organized the rescue of survivors, after a building collapse in Puerto Rico. Each person has a story of choosing others' safety over their own, of acting when action required courage. Noah listens to their accounts, feeling both humbled and confused. These people seem genuinely heroic in ways that make his own actions feel ordinary by comparison. "I just did what anyone would do," he says, when Eleanor asks him to share his story. "That's what we all did," Dr. Hendricks replies with understanding. "The difference is that most people don't get the chance to find out what they'd really do when it matters." The dinner conversation reveals the common thread connecting them, not just courage, but the instinctive decision to prioritize others' well-being over personal safety. Marcus Williams talks about seeing the gun and thinking only about his students' lives. Sarah Chen describes staying with patients who couldn't be moved, knowing the shooter was still in the building. "My wife always said I had a problem with thinking before acting," Noah shares, feeling more comfortable as the evening progresses. "She used to joke that I'd probably try to help a stranger even if it got me killed." "She sounds like a wise woman," Captain Rodriguez observes. "She was. I wish she could see Tommy experiencing all this." Elena listens to the conversation with obvious interest, occasionally asking questions that reveal her genuine engagement with their stories. Noah notices that she's not just managing them as part of her job. She seems personally invested in understanding what motivates people to risk themselves for others. After dinner, Elena offers to show them the White House exterior while it's illuminated against the night sky. Walking across Lafayette Square, Tommy holds Noah's hand tightly, overwhelmed by the magnitude of everything around them. "Tomorrow, you'll walk through those doors as guests of the president," Elena says, pointing toward the iconic North Portico. "How does that feel?" "Surreal," Noah admits. 3 weeks ago, I was worried about paying the electric bill. Now I'm here because I helped someone at a gas station. It doesn't make sense." "It makes perfect sense. The president understands that democracy depends on citizens who'll act on their values when action matters. You demonstrated exactly that kind of citizenship." They walk slowly around the White House perimeter, Elena pointing out features and sharing history that brings the building to life beyond its symbolic importance. Tommy asks endless questions about who lives there, how many rooms it has, whether the president's kids get to slide down the banisters. "Elena," Noah says as they prepare to return to the hotel, "can I ask you something?" "Of course. Why does this matter so much? I mean, why does the president care about what happened in Ohio?" Elena considers the question carefully before answering. "Because leadership isn't just about making policies or managing crises. It's about reinforcing the values that hold us together as a country. When someone like you shows moral courage, it reminds everyone what we're capable of at our best." Back at the hotel, Noah helps Tommy get ready for bed while processing the day's experiences. Everything feels simultaneously overwhelming and meaningful, as if he's been pulled into a story much larger than his own life. "Dad," Tommy says from his enormous bed, "do you think Mom would be proud of us?" Noah sits on the edge of the bed, thinking about Sarah and how she'd react to all this attention. She always believed in doing the right thing regardless of recognition or reward. She would have been proud, but not surprised. She always saw more potential in Noah than he saw in himself. "I think she'd be proud of you for handling all this so well. And I think she'd tell me to stop worrying about whether I deserve it and focus on what good might come from it." "What good?" "I don't know yet, buddy. But maybe that's what we're here to find out." As Tommy falls asleep in luxury that feels borrowed rather than earned, Noah stands by the window, looking out at the city where the country's most important decisions are made. Tomorrow he'll receive a medal from the President of the United States for doing what felt like the only possible choice in the moment. The weight of that recognition settles over him like responsibility he never asked for but can't escape. Somewhere in this city of power and influence, decisions are being made that affect millions of lives. And somehow, through circumstances he still doesn't fully understand, he's become part of that conversation. Elena was right. This is about more than what happened at a gas station in Ohio. This is about what kind of people Americans choose to be when choosing requires courage. Tomorrow, in front of cameras and crowds, Noah will represent that choice. He just hopes he can live up to what that representation means. The morning brings a different Walter Dean to their hotel suite. Not the vulnerable victim from the gas station, or even the retired police officer who's been helping Noah navigate media attention, but a decorated Vietnam veteran wearing his dress uniform with ribbons and medals that tell the story of 30 years in service to his country. Thought you should see the full picture, Walter says, noting Noah's surprise at his transformation. Today's about honoring service, and I wanted to look the part. Elena arrives with coffee and pastries, her professional efficiency now familiar and comforting. She reviews the day's schedule while Tommy examines Walter's medals with fascination, asking questions about each ribbon and star. This one's for the Bronze Star, Walter explains, pointing to a medal similar to the one those men tried to steal. Got it in Vietnam for pulling wounded soldiers out of a firefight. Were you scared? Tommy asks with 8-year-old directness. Walter considers the question seriously. Terrified. But I had friends who needed help, and helping them mattered. More than being scared, Noah hears the echo of his own motivations in Walter's words. The circumstances were different, a war zone versus a gas station, but the fundamental choice was identical. Act despite fear, because someone else's welfare depends on it. Walter, Noah says as they prepare to leave for the White House, I need to ask you something that's been bothering me. Shoot. Why did you call the White House about what happened? I mean, you could have just thanked me privately and moved on. Walter straightens his uniform jacket, checking his appearance in the mirror before answering. Because I spent 30 years watching good people do difficult things without recognition. Most of the time, that's fine. We don't serve for medals or parades. But sometimes, when something represents the best of who we can be, it deserves to be seen and remembered. You think what I did represents something bigger. I think what you did represents exactly what this country needs more of. People who'll step up when stepping up is hard. Not because they have to, but because they choose to. The drive to the White House passes through security checkpoints that transform the experience from tourism into something official and momentous. Guards check identification with practiced thoroughness while treating their group with obvious respect. Tommy watches everything with wide eyes, absorbing details he'll remember for the rest of his life. Inside the White House, Elena guides them through corridors lined with portraits of presidents and first ladies, each painting representing decisions that shaped the nation's history. The building feels alive with the weight of those decisions, as if the walls themselves remember every crisis navigated and every challenge overcome. The president will meet with each honoree individually before the ceremony, Elena explains, as they wait in a reception room decorated with paintings of historical significance. It's a chance for private conversation without cameras or crowds. While they wait, Walter shares stories about his military service and police career that reveal layers of experience Noah never suspected. The decorated veteran who helped him at the gas station was also the young soldier who carried wounded comrades to safety. The police officer who talked armed suspects into surrendering, the man who spent decades choosing service over safety. You know what I regret most, Walter says, his voice carrying the weight of accumulated years. Not the times I was scared or hurt, but the times I could have helped someone and didn't. The opportunities I missed to make a difference. Like what? My daughter. When she was going through her divorce, struggling with depression, I was too proud to reach out, too stubborn to admit I'd made mistakes as a father. By the time I swallowed my pride, she'd moved across the country and started a new life without me. You could still reach out now. Walter nods slowly. Watching you step between that knife and a stranger reminded me that some things are worth the risk of getting hurt. Maybe it's time I took my own advice. Their conversation is interrupted when Elena returns to escort Noah to his private meeting with the president. The Oval Office is smaller than Noah expected, but carries an gravitas that makes him acutely aware of standing in the center of American power. The president enters with the kind of presence that fills a room without effort, not through physical size or theatrical gesture, but through the unmistakable authority of someone accustomed to making decisions that affect millions of lives. His handshake is firm, his eye contact direct, and his manner suggests genuine interest rather than political performance. Mr. Briggs, thank you for being here. I've been looking forward to meeting you. Thank you for inviting me, Mr. President. This is overwhelming. The president gestures toward chairs arranged for comfortable conversation rather than formal presentation. I imagine it is. One day you're going about your normal life, the next you're in the White House. But what you did wasn't normal, and it deserves extraordinary recognition. I just helped someone who needed help. You risked your life for a stranger. That's not just anything. That's the kind of moral courage this country was founded on. Tell me about your son. The conversation shifts to Tommy, and Noah finds himself relaxing as he describes his son's curiosity, his love of science, his resilience in adapting to life without his mother. The president listens with obvious interest, asking questions that reveal genuine engagement rather than polite attention. Single parenthood is one of the hardest jobs in the world, the president observes. How do you balance providing for him with being present for him? Some days better than others. Work keeps us fed and housed. But I worry about missing too. Much of his childhood. Time moves fast when you're just trying to keep up. What would you do if you had more options? If financial pressure wasn't driving every decision, the question catches Noah off guard. He spent so long focused on immediate necessities that longer-term possibilities feel like luxuries he can't afford to consider. I don't know. I used to think about teaching, maybe coaching. Always enjoyed working with kids, but that was before Sarah got sick, before medical bills and reality. Dreams don't disappear just because circumstances change. Sometimes they just wait for better opportunities. The president's words carry weight beyond casual conversation, as if he's offering something more than philosophical observation. Before Noah can ask what he means, Elena appears to announce that the ceremony is beginning. The Rose Garden has been transformed into an amphitheater with seating for several hundred guests. Noah recognizes faces from television, senators, cabinet members, military leaders, but also sees ordinary citizens who've traveled to witness the recognition of courage in their communities. Walter sits in the front row wearing his dress uniform, with quiet pride, while Tommy fidgets with excitement between Mrs. Patterson and Eleanor. The sight of his son dressed in his best clothes, surrounded by the pageantry of presidential recognition, strikes Noah as simultaneously surreal and deeply meaningful. The ceremony begins with remarks about the importance of civilian courage in maintaining the fabric of democracy. Each honoree's story is read aloud, transforming private moments of choice into public examples of citizenship at its finest. When Noah's name is called, he walks toward the podium with his heart racing and his mind focused on not tripping in front of the assembled crowd. The president's presence anchors him, reminding him that this moment represents something larger than personal recognition. Noah Briggs stepped between a knife and an elderly veteran without regard for his own safety, the president announces to the crowd. His actions remind us that heroes aren't born. They're revealed in moments when ordinary people choose to do extraordinary things. As the Presidential Medal of Courage is placed around his neck, Noah looks out at the crowd and sees Tommy beaming with pride. In that moment, the weight of recognition transforms from burden into responsibility, not just to accept honor gracefully, but to live up to what that honor represents. The medal is beautiful, heavy with significance beyond its physical weight. But what strikes Noah most powerfully is the realization that this ceremony isn't really about him. It's about affirming the values that hold communities together, celebrating the choice to help rather than walk away, recognizing that democracy depends on citizens who will act on their principles when action requires courage. Standing in the rose garden, with cameras capturing every moment, Noah understands that Walter was right. Sometimes good deeds need public recognition, not for the doer's sake, but for everyone who needs reminding that goodness still exists and still matters. The evening after the ceremony finds Noah sitting alone in his hotel room while Tommy sleeps, still wearing his medal and processing the day's events. Eleanor had suggested dinner to celebrate, but the weight of everything, the president's words, about dreams and opportunities, the job offers that have started arriving, the growing realization that his old life might not be waiting when he returns to Ohio, has left him needing solitude. A soft knock interrupts his thoughts. Elena stands in the hallway, holding a manila envelope and wearing an expression that suggests official business mixed with personal concern. "I'm sorry to bother you so late, but there's something you need to see. We found this among your belongings when housekeeping was arranging your things for tomorrow's checkout." The envelope is addressed to Noah in Sarah's careful handwriting, but the seal is broken and the paper shows signs of age. Inside is a letter written on stationery he recognizes from the hospital where Sarah spent her final weeks. "My dearest." "Noah," the letter begins, and his hands tremble slightly as he reads words from his wife written during the darkest period of their lives together. "If you're reading this, it means Mrs. Patterson finally gave it to you, which means enough time has passed for you to hear what I need to say without it feeling like another burden during an already impossible time. I know you blame yourself for not being able to save me. I see it in your eyes every time the doctors deliver bad news, every time a treatment fails, every time hope gets a little smaller. But Noah, some things can't be fixed with love and determination, no matter how much of both you have. What you can fix, what you must fix, is the way you're planning to live after I'm gone. I've listened to you talk about taking care of Tommy, about being responsible, about keeping life stable and safe. Those are beautiful intentions, but they're not enough. Tommy doesn't need just stability. He needs a father who shows him that life is worth living fully even when it's hard. He needs to see you take chances, pursue dreams, believe in possibilities beyond just getting by. You used to talk about teaching, about making a difference in kids' lives. You lit up when you described the kind of classroom you'd create, where you'd help students discover their potential. That light dimmed when my medical bills piled up and immediate survival became the only priority. I understand why, but I can't bear the thought of that light going out permanently. I need you to promise me something, Noah. When opportunities come, and they will come, because you're the kind of man who attracts them, don't dismiss them because they feel too big or too risky. Don't honor my memory by making your world smaller. Honor it by living the full life we both dreamed about. Tommy will be proud of a father who works hard and provides for him, but he'll be inspired by a father who shows him that dreams are worth pursuing even when pursuing them requires courage. I love you both more than words can hold. Live like you know how precious that love is. Forever yours, Sarah. P.S. There's a savings account at First National that I opened with money from my life insurance policy before the medical expenses consumed everything. The account number is on the back of this letter. It's not much, but it's enough to give you choices when choices matter. Noah reads the letter twice, then a third time, each reading revealing new layers of his wife's understanding and foresight. The woman he mourned as taken too soon had been preparing him for exactly this moment, when the safe path would compete with the meaningful path, when security would conflict with significance. Elena watches his face as he processes Sarah's words. "Mrs. Patterson gave this to me yesterday. She said Sarah made her promise to hold it until you were ready to hear it, until you had real choices to make about your future." How did she know? How did Sarah know this would happen? I don't think she knew the specifics, but she knew who you are, someone who'd step up when stepping up mattered. She probably figured that quality would eventually put you in a position to make a difference beyond just your immediate family. Noah turns the letter over to find account information written in Sarah's handwriting, along with a note, "For dreams that require courage to pursue." The savings account contains $43,000, money that could fund a return to college, support a career change, or provide the security buffer that would make risk-taking possible. Sarah had somehow preserved this opportunity during the worst period of their lives, hiding it until he'd be strong enough to use it wisely. "There's something else," Elena says gently. "The president mentioned job opportunities during your meeting. He wasn't speaking hypothetically." She explains that the White House has been contacted by several organizations interested in offering Noah positions that would utilize his story and character in meaningful work. A veterans advocacy group wants him to lead their civilian outreach program. A national education foundation is offering a full scholarship for him to complete his teaching degree while working as a community liaison. The American Red Cross wants him to develop programs that encourage civilian intervention in emergency situations. These aren't token offers, Elena clarifies. These are real jobs with real impact, positions where your experience and values would make a genuine difference. Noah looks at Sarah's letter again, hearing her voice in every line urging him toward the bigger life she always believed he was, capable of living. The safety of returning to Ohio, to the factory and the diner and the familiar routine of survival suddenly feels less like responsibility and more like fear. What about Tommy? He's settled in Millbrook, has friends, knows everyone. Uprooting him feels selfish, or it feels like showing him what it looks like when someone chooses growth over safety. Kids are more resilient than we give them credit for, especially when they're following a parent who's pursuing something meaningful. Eleanor's words echo Sarah's counsel about living fully rather than just safely. Noah realizes he's been equating good parenting with maintaining the status quo, but maybe good parenting means demonstrating that change, even difficult change, can lead to better outcomes. Walter mentioned that he's thinking about reaching out to his daughter, says watching me take a risk reminded him that some things are worth the possibility of getting hurt. Maybe you reminded yourself of the same thing. Outside the hotel window, Washington, D.C. continues its important work. Legislators crafting policies, advocates fighting for causes, citizens engaging with the democratic process in ways that shape the nation's future. For 3 days, Noah has been a visitor to this world of purpose and influence. Sarah's letter suggests he doesn't have to remain a visitor. The teaching position, Noah says slowly, where would it be based? Northern Virginia. Close enough. To D.C. for the advocacy work, good schools for Tommy, and there's a substantial community of military families who'd benefit from your perspective on civilian-military cooperation. And the Veterans Organization? Same area. Both positions would let you build a life that combines financial stability with meaningful work. They're offering what your wife hoped you'd have, real choices that don't require choosing between security and significance. Noah folds Sarah's letter carefully, understanding that this moment represents exactly what she prepared him for. The safe choice would be returning to Ohio, resuming his old routines, raising Tommy in the familiar environment where everyone knows their story. The meaningful choice would be accepting that his life changed fundamentally the night he stepped between a knife and a stranger, that some changes can't and shouldn't be undone. "Elena," he says, decision crystallizing as he speaks, "how do I find out more about these opportunities?" "I was hoping you'd ask that. We can arrange meetings tomorrow before you fly back to Ohio. But Noah, whatever you decide, make sure it's your choice, not just the safe choice. Your wife understood something important about how we honor the people we love." As Elena leaves him to think, Noah looks at the Presidential Medal of Courage resting on the hotel room desk. Earlier today, it felt like recognition for a single moment of action. Now it feels like a commission for the kind of life Sarah always believed he was capable of living, one where courage becomes a practice rather than just a response to crisis. Tommy stirs in his sleep, and Noah checks on his son who's dreaming, peacefully in luxury that no longer feels borrowed. Maybe that's the real lesson of Sarah's letter. Some gifts are only valuable when we're brave enough to unwrap them completely. The next morning brings a schedule packed with meetings that feel like glimpses into possible futures. Elena accompanies Noah and Tommy through a series of conversations that transform abstract opportunities into concrete possibilities, each one requiring him to imagine himself in roles he never thought he'd qualify for. The Veterans Advocacy Foundation occupies a modern building near Arlington Cemetery, its walls lined with photographs of service members and civilians who've made sacrifices for others. Director Margaret Chen, herself a veteran who lost her leg in Afghanistan, explains the civilian outreach position with enthusiasm that makes the work sound both meaningful and achievable. We need someone who understands that heroism isn't limited to people in uniform, she tells Noah as they tour facilities where veterans receive counseling, job training, and community support. Your story bridges the gap between military and civilian service in ways that could help both communities. Tommy listens with fascination as Margaret describes programs that help veterans transition to civilian life, and civilians understand military experience. When she asks if he has questions, Tommy surprises everyone with the thoughtfulness of his response. My dad helped Mr. Walter, but Mr. Walter helped other people when he was a soldier. Does that mean helping people is like passing something along? Margaret's smile suggests Tommy has grasped something fundamental about the organization's mission. That's exactly what it means. Service creates more service when people see what's possible. The Education Foundation meeting takes place at George Washington University, where the scholarship program would allow Noah to complete his teaching degree while working part-time as a community liaison. The campus bustles with students who carry themselves with the confidence of people preparing for careers that will matter, and Noah finds himself remembering why he once wanted to be part of that educational mission. Professor David Martinez, who directs the scholarship program, walks them through the teacher preparation curriculum with obvious passion for the profession. Teaching isn't just about conveying information anymore. It's about helping young people develop the critical thinking and moral reasoning they'll need to be good citizens. Like what my dad did at the gas station? Tommy asks. Exactly like that. Your father demonstrated moral reasoning under pressure. He saw a problem, evaluated options, and chose to help despite personal risk. Those are the kinds of decision-making skills we want teachers to model for their students. During lunch at a restaurant near the university, Elena reviews the details of both opportunities, while Tommy colors on a children's menu and asks periodic questions about whether they'd live near the White House if they moved to Virginia. The beauty of both positions is that they complement each other, Eleanor explains. The Veterans Organization would benefit from having someone with teaching skills, and the education work would be enhanced by your understanding of service and sacrifice. It sounds too good to be true, Noah admits. A year ago I was worried about paying for Tommy's school supplies. Now I'm being offered opportunities that could change our whole lives. Your wife's letter suggests she expected something like this to happen eventually. Maybe she understood that people with your character tend to attract opportunities to make a difference. Noah thinks about Sarah's words, urging him to live fully rather than safely, to show Tommy that dreams are worth pursuing even when they require courage. The positions being offered aren't just jobs, they're chances to build the kind of life she always believed he was capable of creating. Dad, Tommy says, looking up from his coloring, if we moved here, would I go to school with kids whose parents work at the White House? Some of them, probably. Would that be okay with you? Tommy considers the question with 8-year-old seriousness. Would you be happier doing this job than working at the factory? The directness of the question catches Noah off guard. He's been so focused on what's practical and responsible that he hasn't considered what would actually make him happier, what would give his life more meaning and purpose. I think I would be, buddy. This work feels like it could help more people than just us. Then we should do it. Mom always said helping people was the most important thing. That afternoon, Walter arrives at their hotel wearing civilian clothes, but carrying himself with the dignity that marks him as a man who's served others his entire life. He's made a decision of his own, prompted by watching Noah consider major life changes. Called my daughter this morning, he announces without preamble. First time we've spoken in 8 years. How did it go? Eleanor asks. Better than I expected. She's got 2 kids I've never met, a husband who sounds like a good man, and enough wisdom to know that life's too short for staying angry at your parents for being imperfect. Walter explains that his daughter lives in Richmond, only 2 hours from where Noah would be working if he accepts the positions in Northern Virginia. The proximity isn't coincidental. Walter has been considering his own fresh start, perhaps, relocating to be closer to the family he'd written off as lost. Funny thing about watching someone else take a big risk, Walter reflects, makes your own fears look smaller by comparison. The evening brings a call from Mrs. Patterson, who's been fielding interview requests and managing Noah's sudden fame in his absence. The conversation starts with practical updates about the apartment and mail, but shifts to deeper concerns about the decisions Noah is facing. I've been thinking about what Sarah would tell you to do, she says, her voice carrying the authority of someone who knew both Noah and Sarah throughout their marriage. She'd tell you to stop overthinking and trust your instincts. She'd remind you that Tommy learns more from watching you pursue meaningful work than from having perfect financial security. But what if I'm making the wrong choice? What if I'm being irresponsible? Noah, honey, working 2 jobs just to scrape by in a place with no future opportunities isn't responsible. It's just safe. Sarah's letter was her way of giving you permission to be brave. The phone call concludes with Mrs. Patterson's promise to support whatever decision Noah makes, including helping with the transition if he chooses to relocate. Her encouragement carries special weight because she's the person who's watched him parent Tommy through the hardest period of their lives. That night, as Tommy sleeps peacefully in the hotel bed, Noah calls the factory to speak with Frank Morrison. The conversation is difficult but necessary, explaining the opportunities, the reasons for considering a major change, the guilt about leaving a community that supported him. You know what I told my sons when they were thinking about leaving? Millbrook, Frank says after listening to Noah's explanation. I told them that staying somewhere because you're afraid to leave isn't loyalty. It's just fear dressed up as virtue. But the factory, the people there, will be fine. We were fine before you came, and we'll be fine after you leave. But this chance you're being offered, chances like this don't come along often. Sarah would want you to take it. Frank's blessing feels like the final piece of validation Noah needs to move forward with confidence rather than guilt. The people who know him best, Mrs. Patterson, Frank, Walter, even Tommy, are encouraging him to choose growth over safety, meaning over mere security. The next morning brings meetings with human resources representatives from both organizations, detailed discussions about salaries and benefits and relocation assistance that make the opportunities feel increasingly real. Elena facilitates the conversations with professional competence, while clearly advocating for Noah's interests. We can arrange for a gradual transition, Margaret Chen explains during the final Veterans Organization meeting. Start part-time, while you complete the teaching certification, then move to full-time as your comfort level and expertise develop. And the Education Foundation can provide housing assistance during the transition period. Professor Martinez adds, we want to remove as many barriers as possible to your success. Standing in the organization's conference room, surrounded by people who believe in his potential and want to support his success, Noah feels the last of his resistance crumbling. This isn't about abandoning responsibility, it's about embracing a larger definition of what responsibility means. Elena, he says as they prepare to return to the hotel, I'd like to accept both positions. If that's possible. It's not just possible, it's exactly what everyone was hoping you'd decide. The relief that follows his decision surprises Noah with its intensity. For weeks he's been carrying the weight of choosing between safety and meaning, between the familiar and the challenging. Sarah's letter provided the permission he needed, but making the actual choice still required courage he wasn't sure he possessed. As they pack their belongings for tomorrow's return flight to Ohio, Tommy chatters excitedly about the adventure of moving to a new place and making new friends. His 8-year-old resilience and enthusiasm remind Noah that children often adapt more easily than adults to changes that ultimately improve their lives. Dad, Tommy says, as he carefully places his White House souvenirs in his suitcase, are you nervous about our new life? A little, are you? Not really. If it doesn't work out, we can always try something else. The simplicity of Tommy's perspective cuts through Noah's remaining anxiety. They're not making an irreversible choice. They're taking a calculated risk based on opportunities that align with their values and goals. If the new path doesn't work out, other paths will open. Tomorrow, they'll return to Ohio to begin the practical work of transitioning to a new life. But tonight, in a Washington hotel room that no longer feels foreign, Noah finally understands what Sarah meant about living fully rather than safely. Some dreams are worth the courage required to pursue them. 6 months later, Noah stands at the podium in the Rose Garden once again, but this time as a guest speaker rather than an honoree. The occasion is the announcement of a new federal initiative to support civilian heroism and community engagement. And Noah has been invited to share his perspective on how ordinary citizens can make extraordinary differences. The months since his first White House visit have transformed Noah's life in ways he couldn't have imagined. The teaching certification program at George Washington University challenged him intellectually, while the veterans' advocacy work provided daily reminders of why his career change mattered. Tommy has thrived in their new Virginia community, making friends and discovering talents in their excellent school system. But today isn't about Noah's personal transformation. It's about encouraging others to recognize their own capacity for heroism and service. Looking out at an audience that includes military leaders, education officials, and community organizers from across the country, Noah feels the weight of representing something larger than his individual story. 6 months ago, I stood in this same garden receiving recognition for what felt like a simple choice, Noah begins, his voice carrying the confidence he's developed through months of public speaking. Today, I want to talk about why that choice wasn't simple at all, and why making it changed everything about how I understand citizenship and responsibility. Elena, now a friend, rather than just a professional contact, sits in the front row with Walter and his daughter Rebecca, who has become like family since moving to Virginia to be closer to her father. Tommy sits between Walter and Mrs. Patterson, who flew down from Ohio to attend the ceremony, beaming with pride at his father's transformation. The night I stepped between a knife and Walter Dean, I wasn't thinking about heroism or making statements about American values. I was thinking about a basic truth my late wife taught me. When you see someone who needs help, you help them, period. Noah's speech draws on lessons learned during his advocacy work, stories of veterans who've struggled to transition to civilian life, students who've overcome impossible circumstances to succeed academically, communities that have come together to support their most vulnerable members. But here's what I've learned in the months since that night. Helping one person doesn't end with that person. Walter's gratitude led him to reconnect with his estranged daughter. Their reconciliation inspired her to volunteer with military family support groups. Those groups have helped dozens of families navigate deployment and reunion. One choice to help created a ripple effect that's still expanding. The president, who introduced Noah with words about the importance of civilian courage in maintaining democratic values, nods approvingly from his seat on the platform. This initiative represents his administration's commitment to recognizing and encouraging the kind of community engagement that strengthens the social fabric. I'm not here to tell you that stepping into dangerous situations is always the right choice, Noah continues. I'm here to tell you that stepping up when someone needs help, whether that's physical danger, emotional support, or just basic human kindness, is always within your power. Noah describes his work with veterans who found purpose in civilian service, students who've discovered their potential through mentorship, and communities that have been transformed by citizens who chose engagement over apathy. Each story reinforces the theme that heroism isn't about extraordinary people doing impossible things. It's about ordinary people choosing to act when action matters. My son Tommy, who's 8 years old, asked me recently why some people help others and some people don't. I told him that everyone has the capacity to help. The difference is whether they choose to use that capacity when the opportunity arises. Tommy waves from the audience when Noah mentions him, drawing gentle laughter from the crowd and a proud smile from his father. The boy who once worried about money for school supplies now attends one of the finest elementary schools in the country. But more importantly, he's learning lessons about service and citizenship that will shape his character for life. The Presidential Medal of Courage I received changed my life, but not because of the recognition it brought. It changed my life because it forced me to think seriously about what I wanted my son to learn, about how we treat each other, about what it means to be part of a community, about the responsibilities that come with being blessed to live in a country where individual choices can make collective differences. Noah's voice gains strength as he approaches the heart of his message, the announcement of a new civilian recognition program that will honor Americans who demonstrate moral courage in their daily lives. The program, developed with input from Noah's advocacy organization, will identify and celebrate ordinary citizens who make extraordinary choices to help others. Today, the President is announcing the Civilian Heroes Initiative, a program that will recognize Americans who embody the values we claim to cherish but don't always practice. These won't be people who stopped criminals or saved lives in dramatic fashion, though we'll honor them too. These will be teachers who spend their own money to ensure students have supplies, neighbors who check on elderly residents during heat waves, strangers who help families struggling with medical crises. The initiative represents the practical application of everything Noah has learned about the power of recognition to inspire further service. By celebrating everyday heroism, the program aims to normalize helping behavior and encourage more Americans to see themselves as capable of making meaningful differences. We're looking for people who understand that democracy isn't just about voting every few years. It's about daily choices to strengthen the communities where we live, work, and raise our families. It's about recognizing that our individual well-being is connected to everyone else's well-being. As Noah describes the nomination process and selection criteria, he sees nods of recognition and understanding throughout the audience. These are people who work in service, military officers, teachers, community organizers, non-profit leaders, and they understand both the power and the necessity of encouraging civilian engagement. I want to close with something my wife Sarah wrote in a letter I didn't read until 6 months ago. She said that Tommy needs to see me live fully rather than safely, that he needs a father who shows him that dreams are worth pursuing, even when pursuing them requires courage. Noah's voice catches slightly as he quotes Sarah's words, but he continues with the emotional strength he's developed through months of sharing their story publicly. The audience listens with obvious engagement, understanding that they're hearing something authentic rather than carefully crafted political rhetoric. Sarah understood something I'm still learning, that the best way to honor the people we love is to live up to our potential to make a difference in the world. She couldn't have known that helping one stranger would lead to standing in the rose garden talking about national initiatives, but she knew that choosing to help was always the right choice. The speech concludes with Noah inviting audience members to think about opportunities for service in their own communities, to consider how their skills and resources could address needs they see around them, to remember that citizenship is an active practice rather than a passive identity. As applause fills the rose garden, Noah looks out at Tommy, who has created another drawing during the speech, this one showing multiple stick figures helping each other under a rainbow that spans the entire page. The image captures something essential about what Noah has learned, that helping creates more helping, that courage inspires more courage, that individual choices can generate collective change. The formal program continues with remarks from other speakers and the official announcement of program details, but Noah's part is complete. Walking back to his seat, he passes Walter, who whispers, "Sarah would be proud," and Eleanor, who mouths, "Perfect," sitting beside Tommy and Mrs. Patterson. As the ceremony continues, Noah reflects on the journey from gas station confrontation to rose garden podium. None of it feels like the result of planning or ambition. It feels like the natural consequence of choosing to help when helping was needed, then building a life around the values that choice revealed. The Presidential Medal of Courage rests in a place of honor in their Virginia home, but it no longer feels like the most important outcome of that October night. The most important outcome is sitting beside him, drawing pictures of people helping each other and learning lessons about citizenship that will guide him throughout his life. The reception following Noah's speech takes place in the state dining room, where conversations flow between military leaders, education officials, and community organizers who share a commitment to encouraging civic engagement. Noah moves through the crowd with Elena at his side, feeling comfortable in social situations that would have intimidated him 6 months earlier. "Excellent speech," says General Patricia Morrison, a decorated Air Force officer who leads military family support initiatives. The connection between individual choices and collective impact resonated with everyone in that room. "Thank you, General. That connection is something I see every day in my advocacy work, how helping one veteran often leads to helping their entire family, their community." Tommy navigates the formal reception with 8-year-old Grace, accepting compliments on his latest drawing and answering questions about whether he wants to follow his father's path into public service. When asked about his future plans, Tommy's response draws knowing smiles from adults who recognize wisdom beyond his years. "I want to do something that helps people, like my dad does, but maybe with science. You can help people by discovering things that make life better." Walter and Rebecca join their conversation, the veteran now serving as an unofficial grandfather figure to Tommy while rebuilding the relationship with his own family. Rebecca's presence at today's ceremony represents the healing that began when Walter found courage to reach out after years of estrangement. "Dad's been telling the kids stories about his police work and military service," Rebecca shares. They're fascinated by the idea that their grandfather was a real hero, but he keeps redirecting their attention to Noah as an example of everyday heroism. "Because everyday heroism is more important," Walter explains. "Military service and police work are professions that attract people willing to take risks for others. But what Noah did requires no special training, no oath of service, just the moral clarity to act when action is needed." Elena, who has become both professional colleague and trusted friend during Noah's transition to his new life, introduces him to Dr. Angela Rodriguez, who directs the Department of Education's Character Development Initiatives. "We're hoping the Civilian Heroes Initiative will provide examples for curriculum development," Dr. Rodriguez explains. Students need to see that heroism isn't limited to historical figures or fictional characters. It's something available to them in their own lives. That's exactly what we're seeing in our community engagement programs, Noah responds. When young people understand that their choices matter, that they have power to improve situations around them, they start looking for opportunities to exercise that power positively. The conversation shifts to practical implementation of the recognition program, discussion of selection criteria and nomination processes that will identify Americans whose daily choices embody the values the initiative aims to celebrate. Noah's perspective, as someone who experienced transformation through recognition, provides valuable insight into how such programs can inspire rather than merely reward. Recognition changes behavior, Noah observes, but only when it's authentic and connected to larger purpose. The Medal of Courage didn't change me because of the honor. It changed me because it forced me to think about what kind of example I wanted to set for Tommy. Mrs. Patterson, elegant in her best dress and clearly enjoying her first White House visit, approaches with Professor Martinez from George Washington University. Noah's academic mentor brings updates on the teaching certification program and news about placement opportunities that align with his advocacy work. The student teaching evaluations are exceptional, Professor Martinez reports. The supervising teachers consistently note your ability to connect abstract concepts to real-world applications, especially when discussing citizenship and civic responsibility. Having lived through an experience that demonstrates those concepts makes the teaching more authentic, Noah explains. Students respond when they know their teacher isn't just reading from a textbook, but sharing real understanding. The president appears at Noah's shoulder, joining the conversation with the informal authority that characterizes his leadership style. Mr. Briggs, I wanted to thank you personally for your remarks today. You articulated the vision behind this initiative better than my policy team managed in weeks of preparation. Thank you, Mr. President. The program represents exactly what this country needs: recognition that heroism happens in ordinary moments when ordinary people make extraordinary choices. Speaking of extraordinary choices, the president continues, I have a proposition for you. We're creating a White House fellowship position focused on civilian engagement and community heroism. The role would involve developing policy recommendations, coordinating with state and local governments, and serving as a national spokesperson for civic courage. The offer catches Noah completely off guard. 6 months ago, he was worried about factory shift schedules and diner tips. Now the President of the United States is offering him a position that would place him at the center of national policy development. I'm honored by the offer, Mr. President, but I'm not sure I'm qualified for that level of responsibility. 6 months ago, you stepped between a knife and a stranger without thinking about qualifications. You were qualified because you had the character necessary for the moment. This is another moment that requires character more than credentials. Elena's expression suggests she was aware of this possibility, though she remained professionally discreet about privileging information. Tommy, overhearing the conversation with the acute attention children pay to discussions about their future, looks up from his drawing with obvious excitement. Dad, would we get to live even closer to the White House? The president laughs at Tommy's priorities. We'd make sure you had excellent schools and plenty of opportunities to visit. Your father's work would help create programs that make heroes out of ordinary citizens like yourselves. Noah looks around the state dining room at the assembled gathering: military leaders, educators, community organizers, family members, all people who've dedicated their lives to serving others in various capacities. 6 months ago, he wouldn't have imagined belonging in such company. Now he understands that belonging isn't about credentials or background, it's about commitment to values that strengthen communities. Could I discuss this with my family and get back to you? Noah asks. recognizing that this decision affects not just his career, but Tommy's entire childhood environment. Of course, Elena has the details. But Noah, your wife's letter was right about living fully rather than safely. This position would give you a platform to encourage that same courage in others across the country. As the reception continues, Noah processes the magnitude of what's being offered while watching Tommy interact effortlessly with adults who treat him as someone important. The boy who once worried about his father buying new shoes now moves confidently through the corridors of power, learning lessons about service and citizenship that will shape his entire worldview. Walter approaches with Rebecca and her 2 children, who have driven up from Richmond to attend the ceremony. The extended family that began forming when Noah stepped in to help a stranger now includes multiple generations connected by shared values rather than just blood relationships. Whatever you decide about the president's offer, Walter says quietly, remember that some opportunities only come once. Sarah wanted you to show Tommy that dreams are worth pursuing. This might be the biggest dream you'll ever have a chance to pursue. The afternoon concludes with photographs in the rose garden, informal groupings that capture relationships formed through shared commitment to service and community engagement. The official White House photographer documents moments that will become part of the historical record. But Noah is more interested in Tommy's obvious comfort in these surroundings. Elena, Noah says as they prepare to leave, I think I already know what my answer will be, but I want to talk with Tommy tonight. Make sure he understands what this choice would mean for both of us. He's been watching you navigate major decisions. For months, Elena observes. I think he's learned that the best choices are usually the ones that let you help more people. Driving back to their Virginia home through traffic that no longer feels foreign, Noah reflects on the day's events and the decision he needs to make. The White House Fellowship represents an opportunity to influence policy at the highest levels, to shape programs that could encourage civic engagement nationwide, to live up to the fullest potential of the platform his heroism has provided. But more than that, it represents the kind of life Sarah envisioned when she wrote about showing Tommy that dreams are worth pursuing even when they require courage. Looking at his son in the rearview mirror, still clutching his latest drawing and chattering about meeting the president, Noah realizes the decision has already been made. Some opportunities are too important to decline, especially when declining them would teach the wrong lessons about courage, service, and the responsibility that comes with being given chances to make a difference. 2 years later, Noah stands in the backyard of their new home in Arlington, watching Tommy practice baseball with Walter while Rebecca's children chase fireflies in the gathering dusk. The house is larger than their old apartment, but feels welcoming, rather than pretentious, with a kitchen table that accommodates the extended family dinners that have become their weekend tradition. The White House Fellowship has evolved into a permanent position as Director of Civilian Engagement, a role that allows Noah to travel the country identifying and supporting Americans who demonstrate everyday heroism in their communities. The work combines his teaching background with his advocacy experience, creating programs that encourage civic courage while providing resources for citizens who step up when their neighbors need help. Dad, watch this, Tommy calls, swinging confidently at Walter's gentle pitch. The ball sails cleanly over the fence into the neighbor's yard, drawing cheers from the assembled family. At 10 years old, Tommy carries himself with the confidence of a child who's learned that taking appropriate risks often leads to good outcomes. Elena, now serving as Deputy Chief of Staff, but still making time for the relationships that matter, most emerges from the house carrying a pitcher of lemonade and wearing the casual clothes that mark this as family time rather than professional obligation. How did the Ohio visit go? She asks, settling into a chair beside Noah on the deck that has become their informal meeting space for discussing both work and personal matters. Better than I expected. The Civilian Heroes Program has identified 12 recipients in Millbrook. Alone, people who were helping others long before anyone thought to recognize them for it. Noah's return to his hometown the previous week had been both nostalgic and affirming. Frank Morrison received recognition for mentoring young factory workers, helping dozens navigate career transitions and family challenges. Diane earned honors for organizing community support for families facing medical crises. Mrs. Patterson was celebrated for her decades of quiet service to neighbors who needed help with everything from grocery shopping to tax preparation. The amazing thing is how much was already happening, Noah continues. We didn't create heroism in these communities. We just started paying attention to it and celebrating it publicly. The success of the Civilian Heroes Initiative has exceeded everyone's expectations, generating thousands of nominations and creating a network of recognized community servants who inspire others through their example. More importantly, the program has sparked conversations about civic responsibility and mutual support that are changing how Americans think about their obligations to each other. Tommy abandons his baseball practice to join the adults on the deck, settling beside Noah with the easy affection of a child who's never doubted his father's love and attention. Despite the demands of Noah's position, their relationship remains the central priority that guides all other decisions. Dad, tell Elena about the letter you got from the kid in Montana. What kid in Montana? Elena asks, with the professional interest of someone who tracks the program's impact across all 50 states. A 12-year-old who saw one of our featured stories about a neighbor helping elderly residents with home repairs. He organized his scout troop to offer similar services in their community. They've helped 47 families in 6 months. That's exactly the ripple effect we hoped for, Elena responds. Recognition inspiring action, which inspires more action. Walter joins them on the deck, moving with the careful dignity of someone who's learned to manage age-related limitations while maintaining his essential vitality. At 84, he serves as an unofficial grandfather to multiple families and an official advisor to veterans programs that benefit from his decades of experience. You know what I told Rebecca's kids about their Uncle Noah, Walter says, using the honorary title that reflects their family bond. I told them that heroes aren't born special. They're ordinary people who make extraordinary choices when circumstances require courage. And what did they say? Tommy asks, though he's heard this story before and knows the response. They said they want to be ready to make extraordinary choices when their time comes. The conversation is interrupted by Rebecca's arrival with her husband and children, completing the family gathering that has become their Sunday evening tradition. These dinners represent the extended community that grew from a moment of violence in a gas station parking lot, demonstrating how individual choices can create lasting connections between people who might never have met otherwise. Over dinner, conversation ranges from Tommy's school projects to Rebecca's work with military family support groups, from Elena's policy initiatives to Walter's volunteer work with veteran transition programs. Each person contributes to a shared mission of helping others while building lives that balance personal fulfillment with community service. I have news, Rebecca announces as they clear the dinner dishes. The family support group has been selected as a model program for national expansion. We'll be training coordinators in 12 states over the next year. The announcement draws enthusiastic congratulations from around the table, but Noah is struck by something deeper: the way individual efforts multiply when they're connected to larger networks of people who share similar values. Rebecca's local work has become a national model, just as his own local choice has evolved into federal policy initiatives. After dinner, as families with young children head home and Elena prepares for another week of White House responsibilities, Noah and Tommy walk through their neighborhood, discussing the day's events and planning the week ahead. "Dad," Tommy says, as they pass houses where lights are coming on and families are settling in for evening routines. Do you ever miss our old life in Ohio? The question requires careful consideration. Noah misses the simplicity of their old routine, the familiar rhythms of factory work and diner shifts, the comfort of knowing exactly what each day would require. But he doesn't miss the constant financial pressure, the sense of limited possibilities, or the feeling that he wasn't living up to his potential to make a difference. I miss some things about it, Noah responds honestly, but I don't miss feeling like I was just getting by instead of really living. Do you miss it? Sometimes I miss knowing everybody in town, but I like having more opportunities here, and I like seeing you help so many people. What about you? What do you want to do when you're older? Tommy considers the question with the seriousness he's learned from watching adults navigate important decisions. Something that helps people, like you do. Maybe medicine, or teaching, or inventing things that make life better. All good choices. The important thing is finding work that uses your talents to help others. As they return home, Noah reflects on the path that led from a gas station confrontation to a life of national service and family happiness. None of it was planned or anticipated, but all of it grew naturally from the choice to help when helping was needed, then to build a life around the values that choice revealed. Inside the house, Noah helps Tommy with homework while reviewing his own schedule for the upcoming week, meetings with congressional staff about expanding recognition programs, a speaking engagement at a teachers' conference, a site visit to evaluate a community initiative in North Carolina. The work is demanding but meaningful, each day bringing opportunities to encourage the kind of civic engagement that strengthens democratic institutions and builds stronger communities. More importantly, it provides daily examples for Tommy about what it looks like to pursue work that matters rather than just work that pays. Before bed, Tommy shows Noah his latest school project, a presentation about everyday heroes that features interviews with neighbors who help others in small but significant ways. The research has taught him to recognize heroism in ordinary moments, to understand that making a difference doesn't require dramatic circumstances or special qualifications. Mrs. Henderson helps elderly neighbors with grocery shopping every week, Tommy explains, showing photographs he took of their neighbor loading bags into her car. Mr. Patel tutors kids who are struggling with math. The teenager across the street volunteers at the animal shelter every Saturday. What did you learn from talking to them? That helping people is just something good people do. They don't think of themselves as heroes. They just see problems they can solve and solve them. Noah tucks Tommy into bed, thinking about the lessons his son is learning through daily observation rather than formal instruction. The boy is growing up in an environment where service is normal, where using your advantages to help others is expected rather than exceptional, where citizenship means active engagement with community needs. Standing in Tommy's doorway, Noah looks around the room that reflects their new life. Books about science and history, a soccer trophy from his school team, photographs from White. House events mixed with family pictures that include Walter and Rebecca's families. This is the life Sarah envisioned when she urged him to live fully rather than safely, to show Tommy that dreams are worth pursuing even when they require courage. In his own room, Noah opens the drawer where he keeps Sarah's letter alongside the Presidential Medal of Courage and photographs from significant moments over the past 2 years. The letter's pages are worn from repeated reading, but its message remains clear. Honor love by living up to your potential to make a difference. Looking out the window at their neighborhood where families are settling in for the night, Noah understands that he's found what Sarah hoped he would find. Work that matters, relationships that support and challenge him, and a life that provides Tommy with daily examples of what it means to be a contributing member of a community. The story that began with a knife in a gas station parking lot has become a life dedicated to encouraging others to step up when stepping up is needed. Not because heroism requires special qualifications, but because ordinary people making extraordinary choices is what holds communities together and makes democracy work. Tomorrow will bring new opportunities to recognize courage, support service, and encourage the kind of civic engagement that transforms individual choices into collective progress. But tonight, in a house filled with the contentment that comes from work well done and love well shared, Noah simply feels grateful for the path that led from survival to service, from helping one stranger to helping a nation remember its capacity for everyday heroism.